It's a unique career, I think. It's all about teams, so it's very good like that. Exceptionally rewarding.
You feel like a geek sometimes when you're driving through a town again. I know it's under there, but you did it. You helped the infrastructure, sewers, water, transport, and it's just, you make a difference. End of the day, we've left this legacy.
The more you work in tunnelling, the more you realise that although it may be mechanised, it is entirely dependent upon the people running that tunnel and the personality of those people and the way that team comes together.
When you go into a tunnel for the first time, it's quite overpowering. There's a lot of noise, things going on. You're sort of looking around all around, what's going on, what's that noise, what is it? The whole atmosphere is very different.
Sometimes I'd be walking through the dust carrying materials in and out, and then I'd get to another pocket of men and they'd all be working and having the crack and singing, and one of them would have the plug to the 110 volt lead turned upside down and they'd be singing into it, and everyone would be laughing and having the crack, and I'm thinking, what am I doing here? It was dark, it was pretty dusty, and it was challenging.
It's thoroughly enjoyable. You are effectively going somewhere where no one else has been. You're tunnelling through the ground. There's unexpected things there.
I got my first week's pay. I remember getting my pay slip and I went off and to McDonald's at lunchtime and sat there and opened the pay slip, and then I looked at the pay slip and I got more money for the 3 days than I would have got working 7 days on the surface. At that point, for me, I was going to stay in tunnelling. This was for me, I thought, yep, I can handle this. I'm going back down with them lunatics down there now.
A verbal alarm went on. There was no alarm on the tunnel boring machine, but it was just, right, there's a problem going on, so there's sort of the commotion, so we went down to see what's going on. Grouting guys, we were broken down. He went back to pick up the old grout plugs to bring them back to the build area. Previously, the trains used to come in without any camera or a banksman sitting at the front of the train with control of the brakes. The train came in and they didn't see him, so he got run over and he got crushed.
I was a local driver. We had to drive in a certain speed when we are on the crossings, or different speed when we are on the straight tracks, but I wasn't following it. I was driving very, very fast. As the loco derailed, I pulled the electrical panel with me. I'd scraped 11 kV cable that was giving power to the TBM. It was a bad experience, but it is just something that was a kind of an alarm for me. Like, why was I not following the procedures? I had a lucky escape.
A gang of 6 men working a modern rotary digger can clear a running tunnel through the clay at the rate of 2 inches a minute. Like moles, they tunnel towards the next gang along the line.
Tunnelling even now is a noisy business. You're in a confined space, a lot of mechanical equipment. Going in on a muck skip, you're in a long train. I think we probably went in about 5 kilometres, and everything would be rattling as it went over the rails.
Those days it was very different. There was no real safety culture at all. We didn't have to wear hard hats or high vis or anything like that. We just wore whatever the old clothes were to hand. And the think, going up and down shafts in skips that were used for taking the dirt out. I'm not proud of it now, but that's how you had to do it. Otherwise, you didn't get down there.
You'd only stop for toilet breaks, when you had to stop. You'd eat your food while you were working. You'd drink your drink while you were working. Once you go underground at 7 o'clock in the morning, you don't see daylight again until you come out at 7 o'clock at night.
He'd put about 12 bricks in a rope sling and swing them down, and put a sandbag in his hand to stop them the rope burning his hands. And the rope snagged, and he went to snatch it, and he went over, and he landed on his back on the brickwork that they were building up. He probably only fell 15 feet, but that was it. He was dead.
And it was a scene of absolute chaos. As you approached it, you could see that the tunnel was changing shape. And there was water coming down from the crown, there was sand coming in from the invert. The sides were going out and the invert was coming up. Scary sounds a bit dramatic, but I think that's the best word. The tunnel was collapsing.
And I looked through the airlock, and next thing I could see the pit bottom and the shaft. The water was rising, and rising pretty quickly. And the only way out of the tunnel for us was to come through the compressed airlock into the shaft and up the ladder. And by this time, there's probably almost 4 foot of water there. And I could see it was rising very rapidly.
There were rocks flying over the top of me. I waited for the area to clear, to put my head above to look round, and realised that if I'd been at the 150 metres, which was at first was deemed to be the safe position, I wouldn't be here now telling this story. We were still in the old 18th century, 19th century drill and blast days of poor hearing protection, poor dust suppression, working 12-hour shifts, doing 13-day fortnights, things that now you wouldn't dream of doing.
The ventilation bagging set on fire, and before you knew it, you couldn't see very far in front of you. We were all self-trained back then, because it's quite a number of years ago, so nobody actually showed you how to wear a self-rescue or put one on. You just had to fathom it out for yourself.
Unfold the breathing bag. Place the mouthpiece into your mouth, with the mouthpiece flange between your teeth and lips.
The equipment gets very, very hot. The moisture out of your breath sets off the chemical inside, and it gets really, really hot. That's how it's designed to work. It actually burnt your chest. It was that hot. They then designed chest pads, so that one didn't get so hot. But again, because you've got something in your mouth, your body thinks you're eating, so your body then produces saliva as well. So you actually come out like a wreck. You're like blubbering, saliva, and it's really, really hot, and you are all hot and flustered. But you've got out to safety with a piece of kit what's designed to save your life.
Because the Channel Tunnel is so vast, 5,000 people working there on shift, work groups all over the place, tunnels, cross pastures, it's important to communicate. We spent a lot of our time going up and down, etc., in the tunnel and various man riders and things.
We got this call one night that a driver driving a train back had reported that he thought he had hit something, and possibly he thought he'd hit someone. He wasn't sure he'd hit, but there shouldn't have been anything in his way, and it became, after sort of doing a few quick checks, it became quite apparent that it was the most likely thing he'd hit was someone rather than something.
I remember hearing on the radio about this terrible accident that had happened in the Marine Service Tunnel.
We had to start checking with everyone who was where, and actually then also making sure that anyone who came out, we made a note of who'd come out, and we had a sort of big checking off list as to who we thought were there, who actually we could identify were there, and then looking to see the problems. And it took us probably 2 or 3 hours to identify that we were missing a young technician, chain lad.
We found out later that it was the young guy. He was wearing earphones. He stepped out from in front of, in fact, there was some skips that were parked in the tunnel. There's 2 rails, one skip's parked on one side. He didn't hear the train coming towards him. He stepped out right in front of the loco.
From my memory, he turned up late once or two before, and he'd been told off for doing it. And so he thought, because he missed the man carrier this night, he missed a train going out to the work surface. So he decided he'd walk.
But I remember the radio chatter that normally you hear, particularly on night shifts. Normally there's a bit of banter going on, etc. But on this particular night, after that had been announced and the tunnel rescue team had been called for, it was particularly quiet, and that was quite moving for me at the time. And I guess at that time it really dawned on me just how tunnelling can be so dangerous.
And there's all kinds of lessons there for us, but the one I learned really was just make sure you know where everyone is, and make sure that everyone knows what they must do and what they mustn't do.
That impressed a lot on me, actually. That steered me to wanting to do something about it in my managerial career, to try and do as much as I can to keep people working safely and going home.
I think people perceive tunnelling as challenging, as hazardous. I think in its day it has been. I think the way we operated as an industry was very focused on production and getting where we needed to go as quickly as possible. But I think the industry is changing. I think the way we look at and treat people and manage their well-being is changing a lot, and I think for the better.
The culture back in our day was, when you went down a tunnel, you got abused from morning to night by the chap above you. If you were the miner's labourer shoveling the spoil for him, he abused you. The chap above him abused him, right to the, and that was the culture. And their aim was, they thought that was how they got the best out of you. Yeah. And I found this very difficult to understand. I could accept the criticism, it wasn't a problem to me, but I thought there must be a better way than this to get the best out of people.
Before maybe there was a culture where people who are working in low rank were not heard. But nowadays, everybody can speak. Speak up. When you speak up, you save an accident. I have the love for the tunnels. It's amazing how the tunnels are built, and people above ground don't know what's going on underneath. And I think it's amazing. If I'm taking you down for the first time, I'll tell you, look, if you go down once, you definitely want to go down again. It's absolutely amazing.
I like it because it's been fulfilling, it pays well, and it's fun as well. I have a great time. It's really interesting. There's not a day that's the same. People might think tunnel, boring, but it's not. It's completely the opposite. Very interesting.
Engineering is a good career, and I keep trying to persuade my granddaughters, I've got 7 granddaughters, and my eldest one, that's a good career to have. I think it's very rewarding. It gets you outside, you're not stuck in an office all the time, and there's lots to learn.